Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, today we're going to talk about jobs number and how this affects real estate because the economy is absolutely on a tear right now, despite high interest rates.
Right.
Okay, so we'll start with the headline of the article. It says, latest jobs report signals that interest rates are unlikely to drop anytime soon. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people out there waiting for interest rates to drop because mortgage rates generally will drop too, and then people are looking to go out and purchase homes. They want. A lot of people have said, "Hey, I want to wait till interest rates drop before I go buy a home." But let's say interest rates drop tomorrow to 3%, and they went out to buy a house. What would they expect right now?
They would expect pandemonium and insufficient inventory.
Okay, so they wouldn't. Even if rates dropped to 3%, you wouldn't be able to get a house because everything would get bid up. You wouldn't be able to get it. It just wouldn't happen, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So we'll go through the article, talk about the specific things in here. Now, what we're going to talk about is more macroeconomic. So in your market, you might say, oh, but in my market, we're talking about in general because this is giving people an idea for what could happen in a general sense. Okay. So Friday's blowout jobs report showing 353,000 jobs added in January versus expectation for 185,000 jobs is another signal U.S. economy remains strong. Now, Wanda, these are not new jobs. These are net new jobs.
Correct.
So give an example.
Okay, so for example, part of this was something like 15,000 tech jobs. So that meant that if there were 40,000 layoffs, then the economy created 55,000 jobs because the net was 15,000 jobs, right?
Just in tech.
Just in tech. And then it was like leisurely was like 11,000. Leisurely and hospitality was like 11,000. Healthcare was like 70,000. So those are some of the bigger, more interesting numbers. One of the things that I found interesting was that the numbers for December were revised upward too.
Okay. The idea, there's this kind of growing sentiment that the crashing economy, all the people being out of work will cause people to be forced to sell, foreclosures, crashing housing market. First of all, we know that doesn't happen because would you remember what the average time to foreclose is when somebody misses their first payment?
So in Nevada, it's about 1,000 days. It's like 900 and some odd days.
Which is like 2.5 years. So even if we did, like, for example, we have we lead the nation in job growth.
Right.
We have the highest job growth in the nation in Nevada. Home prices are showing it here up about 11%. So the idea, though, that there would be all these job losses and that would cause housing prices to fall is not happening. So here's another quote for the article. In remarks after the announcement, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said he thought it was unlikely the first rate cut of the post-pandemic period would come in March, as some investors were hoping. Inflation, he said, remains too hot even at 3.4%. The central bank wants to get it back down to 2%. They don't want to screw this up, right? They want to make sure they get inflation down before they turn up the economy. But it looks like even with interest rates what they are, we're like it's like in full-blown expansion phase, right?
Right. And one of the concerns that the Fed has is that we've got inflation at 3.4%, but we have wage growth at more than 4.5%.
Okay.
And that's a huge gap, which means that we've got more money coming into the system. And that is what ignites inflation. Remember that's how we got here in the first place, lots of money coming into the system. So we've got lots of jobs, like 9 million open jobs. We've got wage growth outpacing inflation by a lot. And all of those are a huge concern for the Fed. And so this is providing that the Fed sticks to its word of being data-driven in its decision-making. The Fed's likelihood of doing a rate cut really in the first half of the year is non-existent at this point.
Yeah, and you have people getting pay raises, and they have more money to spend on stuff. And the idea of this is that if we're not creating more goods and services, then that money is basically chasing the existing goods and services and causing inflation. So it could be like a leading indicator to, hey, if people are getting paid 4.5% more, but stuff's only costing 3.5% more or whatever, then that extra percent plus has to go somewhere. And sometimes it goes into, especially in increasing, if you've bought like airline tickets recently, or if you've traveled, those prices have crept up a little bit, and they're included in the CPI, right?
Right, and this kind of goes to speak with regarding the consumer debt. And so people obviously, because they're getting paid more money, they're more confident about their ability to repay the debt, or at least they have an interest in having an increased lifestyle. So that speaks to that consumer debt.
Yeah. The other thing was that the unemployment 3.7% is historically extremely low, like literally almost the lowest it's ever been.
Right.
Okay. Here's another quote. What the economists are saying in a note to clients after Friday's jobs report, Seema Shah, the chief global strategist at Principal Asset Management, said the data showed there is absolutely no sign of a softening labor market or weakening wage pressures, meaning despite thousands of layoffs in industries such as tech and media, other job sectors are still going strong. But even in those sectors where the people got laid off, there were more. So all those people who lost those tech jobs were able to go not only find another job, they probably had numerous jobs to pick from because more jobs were created than what were removed.
Correct.
So the two things they might do, if they're in the market to buy a house, they could still do that because they're just moving to a different job. Or if they're in a house, they don't have to worry about like being foreclosed or not missing payments because they could probably just move to, they'll keep having income, right?
Right.
Okay. Following the release of Friday jobs report, financial market traders increased their odds of the Fed maintaining its current rate through May from just 6 to 27%. So remember, there was a 6% chance that the rate would still be the same in May. Now it's 27. That's still not very high. The odds that current rate staying the same through March climbed from 62 to 80%. So we had talked about the scenario where there was 6 rate cuts next year, like basically every time the Fed meets to get the economy going again, get inflation under control. That's more of a long term. They're trying to get the federal funds rate down to this 2 to 3%, which is maybe more of a long term, what they think is a reasonable cost of money. They're guessing because they don't know, right?
Right.
And that would put interest rates back in the 4 or 5%,
Right.
which is where, for mortgage rates, that's where they would normally be. Right now, there's about 6.5, which are pretty low given the fact they were almost at 8% like 4 months ago.
Right.
Okay. How does that affect people that are going to buy a house if the economy's on a tear? There's a lot of demand and competition for housing, but the people who need to get a loan are saying, oh, I got to wait 6 more months or a year or 2 years, or maybe, and maybe I wait a year and I only get 1%, lower interest rate on the house. And in the meantime, home prices have gone up maybe 40, 50,000.
Right. So, everybody's situation is different, right? We've talked about this a lot. If this is the right time for you to buy a house, then buy a house. Buy a house you can afford. Make sure you've got savings, you've got a rainy day fund. Make sure that you've got all those things. As far as the rate is concerned, today's rate is today's rate. Will rates be lower in the future? Probably. When will that happen? I don't know. However, you're going to have to deal with the payment for at least some time. So make sure that you can afford the payment and still have a decent quality of life. We're
not saying it's a great time to buy. Obviously, if you don't have enough money for a down payment, if you don't make enough to qualify for a loan, and you're not going to be able to buy a house. We're just pointing out that, the people who said, I'm going to wait for rates to, I still remember the people in 2009 or 10 that were saying, I talked to this economist at UCLA, and he said, home prices still have 15 to 20% more to fall. When a median home in Vegas is about 100, you could go to Summerlin, a really nice part of Vegas, and get a really nice 1,600 square foot house for about $150,000. Granite countertops in a really nice area for about $150,000. Those houses today are $4 something.
Right.
Yeah, but probably $450 for that house. But I'm not buying yet. I'm going to wait till they drop down to like 120 and then probably buy then. And that, of course, never happened. That was literally the bottom of the market. Yeah. Okay. That was the last one.
All right. Cool beans. Hopefully you got something out of this. We thought it was super interesting as far as, personally, I thought the most interesting piece was the difference between wage growth and inflation. I thought that was really telling of maybe the next few months in our economy, and the Fed's caution regarding any sort of rate cuts. So long as that's in play, I think that they're going to be very cautious, because inflation is very easily fueled by wage growth. And when we're seeing job numbers like this, which is a good thing, I want people to be employed and to make good money. Again, the Fed is going to proceed with caution. So I was very heartened by the fact that the Fed is so far sticking to its word and being data driven. So hopefully you thought that was interesting too. Please leave us your real estate related comments. We appreciate them. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.